Yeah, well, hello, dear friends. This is Bob Hatton again. This is your encourager. And yeah, I've got an encouraging word today. I want to have a look at the big picture. And this big picture, we call that the meta-narrative. Just take a step back and ask ourselves, where did everything start? Now, I mentioned earlier that it is important that we have a biblical world view. You see, the Bible tells us, shows us how the world is, from God's perspective, and not from the perspective of man in the 21st century. And there's a lot of things that are written here that are in complete contradiction to things that people take for granted in the world today. So anyway, where did everything start? We've got to go to the beginning of the Bible, into the book of Genesis. And we read there that in the beginning, God, He created everything. He created everything, and nothing that is created was created without Him. And together with Jesus, he did this. The Bible says He created by sending His word and through the power of the Spirit. So this is a work of the Trinity this creation. And He created man, male and female, Adam and Eve, and He created them and He made them into a little family. They were together with Him, and He would come to them later in the afternoon, in the early evening, it says in the cool of the day, when the sun was setting, and He would go and He would share with them. They would have fellowship, and they had a very, very good relationship. And God says, I want you to eat of all the trees, and I want you to, just feel at home. Here's one tree that you're not supposed to eat of, and that's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But everything else you can eat of. And so and He said, I've got a task for you. I want you to be fruitful, and I want you to multiply, and I want you to fill all the earth. Now, the reason why God wanted that, because this is His plan, and that is to fill the earth with the glory of God. And He's not let up from this plan. This is still His plan. He wants to see the earth filled with His glory. And man is created in His image. And as man would begin to multiply, he would move out, he would expand, and he would fill the whole earth. And wherever this man went, the glory of God would be there, and thus the whole earth would be full of the glory of God. That was God's plan, and he mentions this in a number of places later. Now, unfortunately, Satan was also in the garden. And the word Satan, the name Satan, it simply means enemy, adversary. And Satan had become the enemy of God. So he approached man, and he put in question the things that God had told them. And man listened to Satan and decided they were going to follow him. So they were disobedient, and they didn't believe God. They were a bit disobedient to Him, and unfortunately, this is what we call the fall of man. Sin comes into the world, and Adam and Eve were separated from God. God threw them out of the Garden of Eden, this special place that He had created for them. He threw them out, and there was separation. Now, we might say, well, this little bit of disobedience, that wasn't too bad. But you see, there's something then has come into the human race, and the next generation is even worse. They have two boys. One is called Cain, the other is called Abel. And Cain kills Abel. He's jealous of him, and he kills him. Things are getting bad, and they will get worse. We can read in the first pages of Genesis about a man called Lamech. We read about a man called Nimrod, and they were really, really terrible guys. God destroyed the world then early on in chapter 6 of Genesis. We read about the flood coming and Noah building an ark. And he started more or less out again with Noah and his family. But things didn't get better either. And in the end, we see this thing where all the people of the earth gather together and they start to build a tower in Babylon, or in Babel, the Tower of Babel. And they they want to make a name for themselves, and they want to find their own way into heaven. They're building this tower so that it will reach up to heaven. And God, of course, he is very unhappy about this, and he hits these people and confuses their language. So suddenly we got languages. People can't understand one another because of the different languages, and that's where the origin of the nations comes about. And this is like this, what started in Genesis chapter 3 finishes now in chapter 11 with the fall of man. Man is completely gone away from God. He's following Satan, who used to be called Lucifer, who used to be in heaven, who used to be an angel, who used to be the worship leader of God, and he used to lead the angels in praise and worship of the one who sits on the throne. But then in his heart, he lifted himself up above God. He wanted to sit in the place of God. He rebelled against God, and God had to separate himself from Lucifer. And Lucifer was cast out of heaven, and he took with him a third of all the angels. And these angels, these spiritual beings, they're together with Satan, the enemy. They're working here today. And we must remember that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but we fight against these principalities and these powers of this dark world. And it really is shocking when we read what the Bible has to say about this world. And Satan, he was orphan child number one. He left God, and he was suddenly without a family, without a father, without any kind of authority over him. The next orphans are them Adam and Eve, who decided to be independent of God, who decided they're going to do it their way. And we see this in these first chapters of Genesis, as the people are completing this fall away of man, that it's again and again, it's about independence. It's about not wanting to come under the control of God, unto the lordship of God. And then in 1 John 3, the first letter of John says that the whole earth, the whole world is under the control of the evil one. This is Satan. This is the enemy. He's under the control, where it is under the control of the evil one. But then the good news is that Jesus came. That's why we're celebrating Christmas. And in chapter 4 and verse 4 of Galatians, let me just read to you what Paul writes there. He says, "But when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. And because you are sons, God has sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So you're no longer a slave, but a son. And if you're a son, then an heir through God." So that is the good news. We were all under the dominion of Satan. We were going our own way. We were orphans. But now God has come. Jesus has come. And in Colossians chapter 1 and verse 13 and 14, it says that he has delivered us from the dominion of darkness, and he has transported us into the dominion of light and love of his dear Son. You know, there's a fight, there's a war going on. It's a war for the hearts and the minds and the souls and the spirit of people. And we are fighting against this, and there's a mighty fight going on. And what God is doing is revealing himself in these days as the Father of the fatherless. And as the fruit of the fatherlessness is becoming bigger and bigger, God is coming with even more power to deliver people from this fatherlessness, and he wants to put them into the family. God is a father of the fatherless, and he is a defender of the widows. I think this is such a wonderful theme. We'll continue it tomorrow. God bless you. See you then. You're Bob Hatton, your encourager.